Moxie Talkers. Welcome to another edition of Moxie Talk with Kirt Jacobs. Today, we're going to talk with our 432nd guest. She is Alison-Ver-Halen. She's based out of the Chicago, Illinois area, and she is considered a content marketer, SEO strategist, author, and professional speaker. Now, she graduated in 2009 from Lawrence University with a BA in English and psychology without realizing she was getting the perfect degree for content marketing. Now, but it wasn't until a few years after she graduated when a family friend asked her to write blog posts for his law firm. Then she realized she could make money doing what she loves. Fast forward to today, and Allison is still writing blog posts as well as website landing pages and emails, but also integrates SEO and marketing strategy into the content she writes to give her clients their best chance of attracting, engaging, and converting their ideal clients. Allison, it is a true pleasure for you to be with us today on Moxie Talk with Kirt Jacobs. Welcome to Moxie Talk. So great for you to be here. Thanks. Well, Allison, I really enjoy you being here on Moxie Talk and sharing your human journey. You're our 432nd Moxie Talk, and what no one knows, because this will air for ad infinitum, but it's very cold outside. So luckily, we live in an age where we have the digital and technological ability to do this. We're not even in the same city. So thanks for being on Moxie Talk. Really happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thanks so much for having me.
What drives you to excel in your area of expertise? You know, you're a content creator, a blogger, a professional speaker. What drives you to excel in that? That's our first question.
Yeah, lots of things. I've always loved stories, reading, watching, telling, writing stories. And I love that in my business now, I get to hear people's stories. So that's probably the most fascinating part of what I do, is hearing all about what other people do. Is I'm sure you also love doing this as well for the same reason.
Absolutely.
You get to hear other people tell their stories. So yeah, I love that I get to hear, people's histories and how they got to where they are and where they want to go. And then I get to turn that into a story because no one thinks that they have a story, or no one thinks it's interesting. So I like being that outside perspective. Yeah, I like being that outside perspective and being like, no, here's the beginning, here's the middle, here's the end, here's the journey you're going on. We can totally have an arc around this. This is so much fun. So it's just having fun is a big driver for me. I am also fairly competitive, come from a competitive family. So wanting to be the best is always a driver for me, even if it's just beating the writer I was yesterday, the writer I was last week, just making it better and better, and always improving. Because if you're not improving, then why are you bothering?
So Allison, that's great. Who do you credit most influential in your life? And it can be more than one person. It can be personal or professional. It can be a group of people.
Yeah, I feel like it's been a series. I mean, obviously my parents have been the most influential. And it's funny, when my mom was always a big reader. My dad was always a big reader too. My mom is the one I think of as being the one most language oriented. My dad is an engineer, so we joke about his being an engineer. And he talks in numbers, not so much with words. My mom and I were always the word people. And it's funny that I never really thought of myself as an entrepreneur or business owner. It's not something I aspired to. I just kind of fell into it. But my dad always owned his own business, and his dad always owned his own business. And a bunch of my dad's siblings own their own businesses. So it's kind of weird that I never thought maybe I should just own my own business, because, and my mom's parents own their own farm, so they were also self-employed. So I've always been surrounded by these small business owners and entrepreneurs. I like to say we don't deal with authority very well. We don't like other people telling us what to do.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, I know. Well, you're talking. Go ahead.
That's at least part of how we ended up. I think as small business owners and entrepreneurs working for ourselves, as we like to be in charge. So yeah, and then I mean, various other friends and entrepreneurs in my life who were, when I was in that 9 to 5, but had the side gig, and they kept trying to push me into taking the plunge and ditching the day job to take it full time. And eventually I did. Obviously, I'm here, and I really don't think I would have done that without them. So it's been yeah, them and gosh, I feel like everyone that I've met in the course of this entrepreneurial journey that I've been on has been super influential in
Mhm.
getting me to where I am today and to where I'm going to be going.
What do you consider to be the most defining moment of your life, Allison? And again, it can be more than one, personal or professional.
Yeah, of my life is it probably, and I don't even know if it's one moment.
Mhm.
Um, because again, it's all a journey, and we all, have a few steps that we go through to end up where we end up. So for my, again, professionally, and I think this was also pretty defining personally as well, was how I ended up as an entrepreneur, which is I did major in English and psychology. So I got the perfect degree for what I'm doing now, which is content marketing.
Mhm.
Had no clue this was an option. Actually thought I wanted to go into publishing. Graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So
Mhm.
there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So I ended up answering phones for a few years, found myself between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. And he knew I had a strong writing background. So he offered me the gig. And I was like, what? I can get paid to write? Seriously? Yeah, sign me up.
Yeah.
So I jumped at that chance and started writing for him, and then for an associate of his, and then for some friends of mine. Did eventually get another day job, but those friends I was writing for were like, hey, you should do this full time. You should join us in the world of full-time entrepreneurs. So I did. Eventually I
Mhm.
got sick of the day job, kept growing the writing to the point where I couldn't do both anymore. So yeah, finally quit the day job back end of 2014, I think,
Okay.
um, to do this full time. Yeah. So um, yeah, like I said, there's not really one moment. It's been a series of things that all kind of
Mhm.
built on top of each other.
Well, I'm going to throw in an organic question, and I only do this because I always try to do a question that I think really kind of relates to the guest. We're filming this, and it'll air for many, many years and hopefully decades, and being digital, it's there forever. We're in the early stages of artificial intelligence, AI. You're a content creator. I am. I'm probably, I would argue, more digital. You're more the wordsmith. How do you feel? I know how it is for me, and the interview and Moxie Talk's not about me, so I won't go there. But how do you feel that's going to impact, enhance, or augment where you're headed? Because as Mark Cuban said, either learn it or get out of the way because the monster's out of the bag. So
Yeah.
with that, I'll leave it to you. I'm going to go sit down.
Yeah, it is interesting to see the ways it's being used and the ways I think it should be used,
Right.
because it is really good at organizing information and processing things. And I love it for idea generation. I don't love it for content creation. And as a content creator, especially one who's writing to, help people get their brand out into the world and
Yeah.
attract, engage, and convert their target audience, doing that with AI is, I mean, I've heard people say it's doable. I'm sure that it needs at least some editing.
Mm-hmm.
When I played around with AI for content creation, I had to do some heavy editing, and I was like, I could actually write this faster from scratch. My big concern with things like ChatGPT is the fact that it doesn't really generate anything. It just kind of aggregates information that's already out there and
Yeah.
repurposes it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's not a great way to stand out. It's not good for your SEO. It's not good from a marketing standpoint. And we've also, I mean, there have been studies that show that ChatGPT is wrong like half of the time, like literally 50% of the time, it gives you wrong information. So at the very least, check for that, fact check it, make sure that it's accurate.
Mm-hmm.
We all saw that disastrous Google Bard commercial where Google Bard gave them the wrong information, and they went ahead and published that commercial because no one bothered to fact check it. So yeah, fact check it, make sure it's in line with your brand. I just think it's really hard to say something new if you're using a tool that uses information that's already out there, if that's its
Yeah,
prime.
I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of this and get far afield for the purpose of our discussion, but I really think in 50 years or whatever, copyright lawyers are going to hate what I'm about to say. I think the concept of copywriting will be this kind of archaic thing that it was a thing before all the technology, but it's so hard to police. It's so hard to put your
Yeah.
arms around in the 21st century and on the backside of AI. I think and I'm not saying you shouldn't have it. I think we're going to look back on that and go, that was an interesting concept that we used for hundreds of years. And you just have to know now when you put something out into the ethos, cyberspace, you're giving it to the world, and hopefully you make as much money and as you can from it for the labor and brain and gray matter you put into it. So that's my 2 cents. I don't want to get too far afield, but I wanted to get your take on
I was
that.
gonna say, I'm sure we could spend all day talking about AI.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be very interesting, and it's going to create a lot of challenges on a lot of levels. But I'll stop there because we could be here all evening. What always seems to make you smile, Allison? It can be more than one thing. It can be something not related at all to writing or content creation.
Yeah, finding that story and getting into the flow when I'm writing for my clients is always a lot of fun. Obviously, I love hearing awesome feedback saying, yay, this is awesome. This is great. This is absolutely what we were looking for. Yay, new content was one of my favorite responses that I got from a client. Yeah, and then not on the more personal side rather than professional. I do have a dog who is napping in the other room as we have this conversation, and she always makes me smile.
What do you consider to be your biggest professional triumph, Allison? And again, it could be more than one. It can also be personal as well.
Yeah, actually, writing and publishing my book, Content Marketing Made Easy, was super exciting on the professional and personal level, just because being a published author has been a goal of mine since I learned my alphabet.
Yep.
So that whole getting to say I'm an author felt so good. It was almost surreal for a while. I think I had to keep telling myself that for a month or two after I published my book before it really felt real. So yeah, getting that book out into the world, having my name on there felt really awesome.
Yeah, that's a huge accomplishment, even in this day and age with all the technology. And I would argue the distractions we all have, personal and professional, getting a book done is sounds maybe easier than it ever has been. So my question to you is, would you do anything differently now that you've created a book? You're an author, knowing that experience. Do you have anything you want to share with people that are toying with the idea of a book and, for whatever reason, they never started the first chapter or what have you?
Yeah, I don't know if I would do anything differently, if only because other than, start earlier, because it is one of those things that I kept thinking, I should write a book, I should write a book, I should write a book. And I finally got an accountability partner who was like, we are going to do Pomodoros for 2 hours once a week, every week, until this book is done. I was like, okay. So yeah, if you are like I was, you keep saying you're going to do it and you keep not doing it, have someone hold you accountable to your goal, because that got it done.
Amen. What do you consider to be the hardest life lesson you've ever had to learn? And it can be a positive one. It doesn't have to be negative.
Mm-hmm. Um, that's a good question. Yeah, I think that accountability.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that accountability. And knowing that it's not always going to be someone else holding you accountable, especially as an entrepreneur. Sometimes you have to be the boss who's leaning over your own shoulder going, okay, when is that project going to get done? Yeah, that being in charge, being the one where the buck stops here.
Exactly. Exactly. I like that. And for me, it's learning that the world doesn't really care about you unless you're bringing value to them. Now,
Yeah.
asking mine, what do you consider to be the biggest risk you've ever taken, and has it paid off? I think I know the answer, but I'm not going to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, quitting that day job to do this full time was the biggest risk. even at the time, because of when I graduated, it was one of those where I was always kind of struggling to pay the bills.
Mhm.
And I had finally gotten to a point where I was making, not great money, but I wasn't really worrying about money anymore. And like as soon as I got to that point, I quit my day job to do this full time. And it was like, well, I'm not sure why I'm doing this, but
Yeah. I think anybody that's a solopreneur, that's kind of the new buzzword. That's what you and I are. I think it's just human nature to do that at times because we lead fairly unconventional lives. I do think it takes a special human being person to do what we do. Um,
hmm
because a lot of people, it may seem romantic, but it's like anything. It's got its ups and
hmm
downs. It's got its good days, its bad days, and you can have great stretches and low stretches. And I'll stop there because I love to talk, as you know. But it's yeah, I tell people, they ask me, how did you do all this? I'm like, well, I'm on chapter 20. You're on chapter 1. So you're not going to have
Yeah.
all this. I've been doing this for 20 years and full time for 6. So, it's a journey. And I always try to tell people you got to crawl before you can walk. But what do you consider to be your
hmm
biggest mistake in your human journey, Allison? Again, it could be more than one and it can be personal as well.
Yeah, not networking early enough and not really seeing the value in networking. Um, that was one of those even after I took this gig full time and had been doing it full time for a while, it took until I kind of hit a rut and had no business coming in. And I signed up for one of those SCORE mentorship opportunities at my local library. And the guy was like, have you signed up for the local Chamber of Commerce? And I was like, no, why have I not done that?
Yeah.
So yeah, signed up for the local Chamber of Commerce and I've been networking all over the place ever since then. So it has been so beneficial for my business and so one of those things where I'm like, how did I not think to do this on day
Now,
one?
do you find networking kind of a necessary evil or do you enjoy it?
I, as an introvert, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with it.
Yeah.
I find that I usually enjoy myself once I get there.
Mhm.
But getting myself out the door and to the event is usually the hardest part.
I always, quick aside, I always think about somebody, and everyone will know who I'm talking about, like Elton John, who's world famous, and I'm like, they wake up one day and they like, what am I doing today? Oh, I'm playing a concert tonight for 70,000 people. Oh my God. Because we're all human, and I think about that
Yeah.
in that way, that's networking. And so I just think about that on an epic scale. And, I'm extrovert, introvert, and I think at times, networking is, it depends on what day it hits. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
What is the best piece of advice ever given to you, Allison? And again, it could be more than one, personal, professional. It can be a quote. It can be something, an act. Doesn't have to be a saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's not a piece of advice as much as it's a question and it's deceptively simple. It's what do you want? And
Mhm.
I constantly find myself going back to that question in just about every situation in my life, personal and professional, is what do I really want out of this? Even this morning, I was like, what do I want out of today? What
Right.
would a successful, this is Wednesday, what would a successful Wednesday in January of 2024 look like?
Mhm.
Um, it's deceptively simple, but it can be kind of like surprisingly hard to answer that question sometimes. But um, I find that's where a lot of the clarity comes from is figuring out what I really want. And then you just have to reverse engineer to get there.
Absolutely. Mine's lead the life you want and you'll lead the life you need. That's kind of
I
the one
like that.
I've come up with because I found myself over and over in situations where, rightly or wrongly, people didn't. I felt like we're always defining my worth. And I wanted to be in a situation where I define my own worth. And so, that takes a lifetime and a long time to figure out along the way. And, that's what I've come up with. So that's what's worked for me. Allison, when was that aha moment when you thought, hey, I can do this. This is my career path. This is doable. This is real. When was that aha moment?
Um, yeah, I think it really started with getting to write those blog posts for that attorney when he offered to pay me for that. I was like, whoa, really? And then
If you're
after,
gonna pay me, right, exactly.
yeah, I was like, I can get paid to write, really? Yeah, and then after 6 months, he came back and told me that I had brought in $75,000 worth of business to his law firm through the blog posts I was writing for him. So that was really an indication that, like, this is not busy work. This is
Right.
not something you're just putting up there for the sake of putting up there. This is having a real impact on his business. So I think that was it, kind of the two big aha moments that built on each other.
And do you feel like with the ever encroaching technology that we face with every passing year, especially to content creators like us, do you feel that it still has the impact that it did, or do you feel like it's kind of morphing?
I think it still has the impact that it did, but I have had to continually up my game to make sure that it still has an impact, because at the time it was, okay, here's your topic, here's some, turn it into a story, write it into a blog post, have a call to action, done. And I didn't put a whole lot of thought or strategy into it.
Mhm.
Now I do keyword research. I think really critically about their brand voice. I ask all my clients a series of questions about their brand voice, their target audience, what their marketing funnel looks like, so that I can have a specific call to action. It's not just, hey, call us. It's more of a, here's the next step in the buyer journey. Here's what you need to know to take that next step in the buyer journey. Here's how to make it really super simple and easy. So yeah, learning all of that and then incorporating all of it into the content that I write for my clients is what makes content today successful versus 12 years ago when I started. And it was not nearly as competitive. You could just
Yeah.
pump out content and still be effective. And now, especially with AI, the strategy is more important than ever, so that you can stand out from all that mediocre content that everyone is pushing out.
Amen. Amen. And having been a big proponent of medium.com, and I'm not knocking it when I say this, I saw a dramatic change from when we started to where we are now. We write articles on people we'd love to interview, but maybe they're either too famous or they're no longer alive. And so that's what we do. What's it like to be Alison-Ver-Halen? I mean, as I say, when nobody's looking and you lay your head down on the pillow, or, you're working on something, the solopreneur pursuit that we all try to do as content creators. What's it like to be you?
For the most part, it's pretty awesome. I do love that I get to work from home. I get to make my own hours. I do regularly get overwhelmed with all of the things that need to go into running a business and taking care of my dog. I do live alone, which I love. I love the fact that when I clean my kitchen, it stays clean until I use it next. And like I said, I've got my dog to keep me company, and she takes me for very long walks. So that's awesome. So yeah, and right now I'm trying not to let myself feel overwhelmed, and
Mhm.
recognizing that yes, all of the things need to get done. No, they will not get done. There's no way. But do what you can, and I always prioritize sleep. So yeah, as far as what I'm thinking about when I go to bed at night, it's okay, what am I grateful for? Because
Mhm.
when I focus on what I'm grateful for, I don't get overwhelmed, and I'm not busy with that, what you're going down the funnel of, oh, I forgot to do this, and this, and then you're not sleeping. So I instead, yeah,
And
curl up with my dog and
you'll find when you get
yeah.
older that sleep becomes this interesting, no pun intended, bedfellow in your life. When you're young, you can push through. I was that guy, a
Yeah.
full day of work or school and work. It's 10:30 and I've got all these things to do. Keep in mind, before wife, kid and stuff. And, I'd push through to 2:33 in the morning, get up and do it all over again. When you get older, your body's not as compliant. And so it kind of flips. You go, if I go to bed at 10:30 and get up at 4:30 or whatever, and do it on
Mm-hmm.
the front end before the day starts. So that's what's worked for me. So the sleep thing's important. The fact you recognize it at a young age is pretty impressive. Because a lot of people don't. They just push through, and then their body finally says, no, thank you.
Yeah,
So,
we can't do this.
so Allison, you've been kind enough to give us some pictures, and I'm here in our virtual studio, and we're going to flip through here. This is your logo. How was that created?
That I'm gonna be honest, I didn't put a well, actually I did put a fair amount of thought into it. So my last name is Verhalen, and I want to say I looked up like what was the like the sigil for Verhalen. And I found that our color was blue,
Okay.
according to the internet. I can't remember where I found this. And that I think it was an ostrich feather was part of our sigil. So what I decided to turn that into was when I was looking for feathers, I found more of a quill, which I thought made perfect sense with writing services. And then I took the same element and just flipped it so that it forms a V for Halen for AV writing services. So that's how that came about. And I want to say the background color was just came with that. I think that it was already there and I didn't bother changing it. So it is now one of my brand colors.
So for those in the audience that may not know, how do you spell sigil and what does that mean?
Oh, it's like your crest, your family crest that the noble family has had. And I'm not claiming nobility in my family. I just
that doesn't sell well in 21st century, but anyway.
Right. But yeah, I was just Googling Verhalen and trying to figure out the history of that name. And because I do have people in my life who have done that with their last names and they end up finding cool things. And I'm like, what was the Verhalen crest? What can I find to go with my name? So that's what I ended up with.
And is this your dog, which you talked about earlier, I believe?
That is my dog. That is Bobby, who is actually not normally super cuddly. So one of the reasons I love that picture so much is because she was actually cuddling up to me. Yeah. So
it looks like really you're in shorts. You know, the trees have full green leaves on them. You're on the highway, so I'm assuming that's summertime or it's a warm part of the year.
Yeah, for sure.
We like the heat.
We were either on our way to or on our way back from Washington Island, which for those of you unfamiliar with Wisconsin, it's way up in the tip of Door County, in north Wisconsin. So we being me and my family and the dog go there. We try to go once a year, and it's a space that has a lot of woods, and the dog loves playing. So
that's great. That's great. Now, this looks like you're having a good time. It looks like you're on a beach party. I don't know if you know these other people or not. What's going on? You're drinking a pina colada? What is that?
I'm trying to remember what I was drinking.
Fun picture. Fun.
Now I'm trying to remember where that was taken. I think that was taken in Key West, okay. If I remember correctly. So yeah, and no, I don't know any of those people. Were just like,
I assume you wouldn't, but I thought I'd at least offer you the opportunity. These look like your running buddies, your running ladies. Are these your friends? What's this?
That is my aunt by marriage and my cousin. And they, along with a bunch of my family, they don't live near me. My aunt lives in New York and the cousin now lives up in Michigan. So we had a chance to get together and everyone rented, not everyone, but most of the family rented a beach house in Michigan, and we all got to hang out together. So that was a picture that we took after just wandering along the beach and collecting seagrass or glass. And yeah.
Who's this fun fellow? He looks like a lot of fun.
One of my other cousins. That was the same trip. So yeah, I can't even remember who took that picture. I just found it and yeah, thought it was super cute.
Who's this fine fellow relaxing with your dog?
That's my dad. And I try to remember, are there two dogs in that picture? That might have been one when we brought.
And it looks summertime again. Looks like you're
that's us up at Washington Island, just relaxing. We had this the apartment we were renting, and it had this balcony area, and the dogs were like, "Let's spend all day, every day on the balcony." So that was we spent a lot of time there, just reading and chilling and hanging out. It was great.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing these pictures with us. Now, looks like you're walking the dogs here. The two are on the beach, I guess, Washington Island again.
Also Washington Island, yeah. And that was when we went walking right before sunrise because they got us up super early. So we actually got to watch the sunrise over the water, which was gorgeous. So yeah, I was trying to remember the last time I had watched the sunrise over the water because it had been a while.
I can imagine.
Um,
Well, that's it. I appreciate you sharing those with us. And, I like to do that. It adds, it's a little off topic, but it is you're the subject. And I like to do that as a little flavor for people watching and lets them know a little more about you outside of, why you're on Moxie Talk. What do you feel people get wrong about you, Allison? In other words, do you ever feel misunderstood? I call it the human condition question. I think any
mhm.
or salt has that experience at least once or twice in their life. Have you ever felt misunderstood, and maybe why?
Yeah, all the time. And a lot of it stems from the fact that I am introverted and I tend not to talk a lot unless I really feel like I have something worth saying. So in high school in particular, I was like that weird girl who doesn't talk a whole lot. Um, yeah, and I found when I was starting to hear things that people were saying about me, I was like, wait, what? Where did that come from? Yeah, and I can't remember anything specific that people were saying. It was just because I was quiet and they weren't sure what was going on in my head, and I think that kind of freaked them out.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. I get misunderstood quite a bit, but again, it's not about me. So, what do you consider to be your why? The great Simon Sinek question. In other words, what motivates you? There's something I think we're all coded. I think that's the term I like to use. We're all hardwired to be a really good construction worker or a mechanic or a writer or a multimedia producer, doctor. There's myriads of careers and professions and artists, what have you. What defines your why?
Yeah, it's telling people's stories. Like I said, I have wanted to be a writer, a published author ever since I learned my alphabet, and I feel very strongly that that's what I was put on this earth to do, was to write and to tell stories. And the fact that I get to do that and make a living is just icing on the cake.
Hmm. I love that. And this is a question that I like to ask because I don't think most people share it, but I think they know it if they're specifically asked. What do you consider to be your biggest pet peeve? One thing that other humans, or I guess animals, but I would say humans do that just get you every time. And maybe you know them and maybe you don't. I think it gives insight into who you are.
Yeah, mostly it's the people who are not paying attention. Especially when I'm walking my dog and it's like, dude, we're right here. And they're taking up the entire sidewalk and they see you coming and they still take up the entire sidewalk. And you're like, really?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I do catch myself sometimes not paying attention and taking up the whole sidewalk with my dog. So I try not to be my own pet peeve, but
Sure.
yeah, that is the one thing that gets on my nerves is when people are taking up all that space and just not aware of the fact that there are other people who need to use this space too.
Yeah, that's why I don't like to go to the grocery. Now we live in an age where you can click the buttons and
Yeah, get it online.
but for me, it's being ghosted. I tell my team if you can't
Oh,
respond to a text or an email within 18 hours, that means you're not looking at it, or worse, you don't care, and that there'll be a price to pay for that. And so I've had to make
yeah.
that I've learned that's something that really gnaws at me, right or wrong. And I think it's not unreasonable. I give people a lot of latitude, but I tell people early on when they start working with me, that'll be the thing where we have odds with. It's not anything else because I don't micromanage. But anyway, um, what do you feel like Alison-Ver-Halen stands for? What not what other people might say about you, but how do you perceive yourself?
Yeah. So again, looking into the origins of the name, not just Verhalen, but Allison. So I found someone told me that Verhalen means storyteller.
Wow.
And someone said Allison means truth, and someone else said Allison means noble or nobility. And so I was like, which one is it? And someone was like, why not noble truth? And I was like, oh, I like that.
Nice.
So yeah, trying to tell the truth when I can. I'm a very honest person. I'm a terrible liar. I have no poker face. So I tend to avoid lying if I can. And yeah, like I said, telling people stories is why I'm here. So that, yeah, I think that it's a pretty good definition of who I am.
If you could have written a letter to the younger Alison-Ver-Halen, what might you have told her, knowing what you know?
Chill out.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely don't worry so much about what other people think.
Hmm.
Um, think I was a senior in high school by the time I realized that like everyone is so worried about what I think of them that they're not judging me as much as I think they are.
Mhm.
And that was a huge eye opener when I realized that.
Sure.
And I mean, I don't know if there are any kids listening to this. I don't want to say don't study in school, but maybe don't put as much weight on your grades as your parents would like you to, because once you graduate, they don't matter.
Yeah, I mean, and when you get to be my age, you start to see that you morph into, and you're always evolving, right or wrong. You're going through different seasons in your life, and I always tell people that are having a rough patch that are friends of mine or family for whatever reason. Quick aside, look at the totality of your life, not just the season you're in. You've had, I'll rattle
Mhm.
off some stuff, and sadly, or positively, I've saved some people that way because they don't think they're all caught in the now and not looking at maybe
The bigger picture, yeah.
how they got themselves in that situation, or maybe it wasn't their doing, but to look at, we all have, it's all an art, that's why I love doing what I do. I love
Hmm.
talking about, I'm kind of getting you in the early part of your life, but if I was to be able to sit down with you for, say, 40 years from now, and you were to watch this, you would probably say, that's almost like another person. I'm looking
Yeah,
at,
probably.
you don't, I mean, maybe not, but I'm just saying it's interesting. So this is our signature question. We're getting ready to land the plane on our discussion. I ask everyone this, younger, older, well known, not known at all, but it's a great story. God forbid, it's cold outside at the time we're filming this. For whatever reason, after we get off the call, it all ends this evening. It's your last day on earth. How do you want to be remembered by family, friends, colleagues, people you went to school with? How would you like to be remembered, Allison?
It's a good question. I tend not to put a whole lot of weight on how I'm going to be remembered just because we have so little control over that. And I think about that last song in Hamilton. You have no control over who lives, who dies, who tells your story.
Mhm.
So I tend not to worry about that too much. I think if I did have control, it would be someone who was there, someone who showed up for the people that were there for her, and for the people that she loved, and yeah, spent some good times together.
I like that. Another way I kind of tweak it a little bit sometimes when people offer that kind of take on it is, what do you want to be known for? Maybe not so much remembered, but what do you want your life to have been known? Legacy is too frothy a word for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a big word.
I like to say known for it, and it can come off as being arrogant. But what do you want to be known for? Maybe we'll approach it that way.
Yeah, I want to be known for definitely the stories that I tell, and the writing that I do. Um, yeah, I do have some fiction that I'm working on, so I would like to have some eventually some words out there under my own name, not just my clients.
Right. I got you.
So yeah.
Well, Allison, I really want to thank you for coming on Moxie Talk. And I'm just going to offer this out for anyone that is watching this. If you know of anyone who has a story worth sharing, we'd love to hear from you. All you have to do is email me, Kirt, K-I-R-T, at moxietalk.com. We're on all your social media platforms. It's not hard to find us. It's a pretty unique name. So we want to thank you for watching. And until next time, I'm Kirt Jacobs.